Welcome to the Structured Communications and Mitel Phone System Overview. My name is Bob Hunter, and I'm a Mitel Government Education and Medical Account Manager. Today, we've been invited by Joe Hatton, the Director of Cloud Services for Structured Communications, to provide a Mitel Phone System demonstration and presentation. And following that will be a case study interview that Joe will be conducting and interviewing Curtis Nelson, the CTO from West Lynn Wilson School District. So before we get started with that interview, we're going to go through a little presentation here, and J.R. Cogorno, our Mitel Systems Engineer, will provide the demonstrations that help double team it with me to provide the presentation for you. So who is Structured? Well, they're an award-winning solution provider, and for nearly 30 years, they've helped K-12 school districts throughout the Pacific Northwest with their ability to deliver through all phases of digital transformation with their holistic approach for security, cloud, digital infrastructure, and of course, voice. As one of our Mitel Gold partners, Structured has been delivering terrific results with their installation, implementation, and support of Mitel phone systems. And just last month, Structured landed on the CRN's 2021 Tech Elite 250 list for the 11th straight year. So Structured is a dominant force with their world-class professional consulting and engineering services, delivering enterprise-grade technology and managed services to implement and provide ongoing service care and support for the solutions they provide to K-12 customers. So a little bit about Mitel. We've been in business for almost 50 years, and we leverage an industry-leading portfolio and strength of partner network with the likes of Structured Communications to be a global leader in today's fast-paced educational environment. And in particular with the pandemic, your school districts need reliable and flexible communication solutions to keep staff and students well connected. Mitel phone solutions enable students to be able to communicate on their own terms remotely and enable teachers to enhance the learning experience, whether virtual or in the classroom, or a combination of the two. So Mitel is a global leader in cloud as well as premise-based phone systems, so we can install solutions to support the various requirements for all the different K-12 school districts in the Pacific Northwest. And we have the unique value proposition of providing the flexibility for you to move to premise or cloud at the speed that you choose. And we're in pretty good company with the #1 and #3 public school districts in the country, with New York City Department of Education and Chicago Public Schools, to name a few. So Mitel is one of the few manufacturers who provide a true end-to-end UC or UCaaS experience with no third-party solutions. So we can handle all aspects of the communication, from phones to applications to the network. So as a result, Mitel delivers a seamless voice, collaboration, and contact center solution if needed from a single source, and we integrate to a number of different platforms like Google Voice and Microsoft Teams if needed. As part of this end-to-end portfolio, since we manufacture our own phones, we will showcase the new 6900 series phones right now. And if you look on the far right, there's the 6910, and this is a great example of an entry-level phone that can be used as a wall-mounted phone in the entryway to a classroom or office. The 6920 and 6930 in the middle are more of the types of phones that you might see on a teacher's desk. And 6930, if you look to the left of center, is Bluetooth capable. So we have Bluetooth wireless handsets, and provides the ability to use wireless decked headsets. And for those superintendents and principals, there's actually a one step up, more of a executive model, which is the 6940. So we have an industry first with Mitel introducing the first of its kind full IP business phone that is antimicrobial. So these antimicrobial phones use a biocoat technology that uses a silver ionized additive in the plastic when the phones are manufactured. And there's no substitute for good hygiene or cleaning practices. However, once these phones are in the classroom environment or even remotely, they can help block the reproduction of virus, mold, and bacteria, and thus be a great, more secure and safe type of phone. So to accompany all of the 6900 series phones, we have, of course, as I mentioned earlier, integrated DEC headsets, wireless Bluetooth handsets, and we use a Bluetooth speaker for not only our conference phones, but also it's a great addition to the soft phone capability we provide for any Windows or Macintosh desktops. So with that, I'd like to pass the baton to J.R. Cogorno to provide a live demonstration of the Mitel Connect. JR, take it away.
First of all, thank you on behalf of Mitel for the opportunity today. Today we're going to demonstrate the Mitel Connect system. It is a pure end-to-end, cloud-delivered, unified communications platform. For those not working remotely today, it is an easy transition to the cloud. And for those currently doing it, they already know how easy it is. It all starts with either a phone on the desk or a soft phone connected to your PC or laptop. So let's get started with the Mitel Connect demo. What you see on the desktop is the Mitel Connect client on the left-hand side. It controls communication but also has various options on how to communicate. Now let's look at a top to bottom navigation. At the top, there's the ability to see everyone in the organization. If you want them copied over to your favorites list, just click the blue star. There's a built-in keypad for soft phones. And clicking My Name shows your direct number or your DID number. You can now have calls to that number directed to either your physical phone, your soft phone, or an external assignment number, such as a cell phone. You are now always in the office and can work from anywhere. You could also see who else is in the office. You can see their presence, whether they're in a meeting or out of the office. Fortunately, you can change your status to in and out of a meeting. And when it comes to call management, there's the ease of a quick speed dial or drag and drop transfer. Now everything is secure in Connect. Check out the bottom left-hand corner of the Connect client and you'll see the lock. It is sending encrypted data because of the baked-in security. Call history, same as it ever was. It is both on the phone and also in the Connect client. You can see all the information associated with the call and quickly call that person back. So let's pull up a call to a phone here on my desk. Once established, you can transfer the call shown right here. But I prefer to take it to My Contacts and simply drag and drop it to an extension. Now, let me pause for a second to decide how I want to disposition the call so you can see all the choices. Other ways to manage the call is to click here, open the third panel. Now you're seeing the various other ways to do the same thing, or other features like moving that call to your mobile phone. More on that later. Now, you notice my contacts list has two tabs, favorites and groups. It's a list of people you commonly communicate with. I like the groups tab because it allows me to focus on my collaboration. So connect in your mind should also mean collaboration. I need to collaborate right now with the Western region. So I can start a group chat, schedule a meeting with my calendar, or perhaps send a group voicemail. All this is inside and focused in a single application. If I see my fellow employee on a call for a long time, I can simply set an alert to notify me when they're finished with their call. Now, when I'm otherwise doing things on the desktop and a call comes in, I have many ways I can deal with that call. I'll have a toaster pop in the bottom right corner, or I can even answer it from the Connect client application. Ignoring it will just send it to voicemail, which I will do right now. Now, when a voicemail is left, a pop-up will show up alerting me there is a voicemail. Now, I've delivered that voicemail to my voicemail box. And you can see other visual voicemails for ease of listening, replaying, forwarding, and deletion. And for those on the road or prefer the delivery of the voicemail as an email, you can enable that setting to receive the voicemail as a WAV file attachment or simply read your email transcription using the scribe feature. Here's an example. Events integrate with your local Exchange server, as well as an Office 365 calendar. For those that may be integrating with Google's G Suite, there's a Chrome add-in for that as well, but we'll take a look at that later. Now folks, working with phone calls and managing voicemails, those are some of the ways to interact. Another way is teamwork. Teamwork is MyCloud Connect's collaboration with instant messaging. Think of it as an internal environment. Internal for chats when you're on the phone with a customer or a parent and don't have an answer for them, and you want a single call resolution. Simply chat with your team and ask them what's the answer. If you need to create a workspace for a project or workspace to advertise information to the company, it's all internal, but you can create it when you need it. Here's an example of a workspace that I've created. You can pull up persistent chat with everyone, upload or view documents, single-click conference call. Here's my media folder, and I can always manage tasks and projects. Also, with the world moving more and more to a text message first type of communication, Mitel's addressed that by allowing your DID to send SMS. You can enter a 10-digit number here in direct messages, send an outbound SMS, and be able to manage a persistent chat stream of those conversations you had. As for the My Voice Connect Prem system, Mitel Teamwork is currently on the roadmap. So keep in mind with what you've just seen, and let's turn to the mobility application. User experience was one of the other things so very important in design of MyCloud Connect. And what we were looking for here was consistency. Can you move through the environment, access a multitude of devices, all while maintaining a consistent experience? And the answer is yes, you can. So when I open the mobility app, we're going to utilize it here for the purpose of voice calls. You can think of it as an office in your pocket. I can see and change my presence. I can check voicemails and call history. I can look at my calendar for upcoming events. And I can also search for both internal and external contacts, as well as my favorites. Now, if you launch a call for mobility, the receiving party will see the caller ID of your work phone and not your cell phone. When the call is established, you see a lot of the same tools that you saw in the MyCloud Connect client, but with a few added options: the handover and the move keys. The handover is great for handing the call over to the cellular network from Wi-Fi and vice versa. It allows you to utilize any network of your choice. So what happens if an important customer gets a hold of you in the car or on your way to the office? Normally you would take that call, get to work, hang up, and then call them back from your desk phone. You no longer have to do that. You can say, hold on one second, I'm going to move your call to my desk phone. And now you can see that call coming in on your desk phone or Connect client, and seamlessly transfer that call off your mobile device and onto your office phone. The other mobile device is Teamwork, which synchronizes messages and workspaces with your MyCloud Connect Teamwork account. So let's bring our attention back to the Connect client, in particular, the availability states. There are 6 availability states: available, in a meeting, out of office, on vacation, do not disturb, and custom. And each of these can be customized with a different voicemail greeting. The custom availability state allows you to create a custom message and presence color, and this will be displayed for your fellow coworkers to see. Now, let's see some of those customizable options and settings. In addition to customizing the greeting, you can simultaneously ring another phone like your cell phone, increase or decrease the number of rings before it goes to voicemail, record the actual voicemail greeting, choose whether you even want the caller to be able to leave a voicemail, and finally, give the caller the option to zero out of the voicemail and go to a particular destination, like the front desk. Another popular setting is the power routing rules. These are rules kind of like Outlook rules for how to handle certain calls. You can create a rule that matches a certain phone number, for example, that spam call you get every day, and send that call straight to voicemail. Other filters include the specific number that was dialed, your current availability state, if you're already on the phone, or the specific time. Once the call matches one of those filters, you have the choice to forward the call to voicemail, to a specific internal or external number, or simply play a ringtone on your phone. Now let's see a couple of call examples and how to interact with them. A call comes in and I answer it from my desk phone. I can now see the active call and have the option to put the call on hold from either my desk phone or my Connect client. I choose the latter. One thing to take note of is that anything that you could do on the phone, you can also do on the Connect client. Add a headset or soft phone, and it's truly a hands-free experience. So now let's take this call off hold and then conference in another call. When conferencing or transferring a call, you have 2 options. Blind, which immediately sends the call through, no questions asked. Or consult, which asks the destination party for consent before transferring or conferencing the call. I'm going to blind conference this call. Now we have a 3-party conference call. One thing to take note of is the fact that there are many ways to do the same thing in MyCloud Connect. There is no right or wrong way, just your way. What about real-time video conferencing? Mitel's answer to that is My Team Meetings, which will improve collaboration and connectedness with your internal and work-from-home teams. The My Team Meeting application is available on the desktop and web and mobile phone app. Here you can join a video call, share ideas face-to-face, capture notes, and store files, which will all return when you all meet as a group again. You can also quickly launch your My Team Meetings from the Events tab in Connect. So now you're asking yourself, what happens if I deployed Chromebooks or I have employees working from home on their personal computers? The answer is simple. The Mitel Connect for Chrome browser extension. Users can easily get started in seconds. This Chrome extension delivers a seamless unified communications experience between Mitel Connect, Google Chrome, and G Suite. You can easily search for contacts and favorites, view their presence, check history and voicemails, and make and receive phone calls, all from the Chrome web browser. There are call management options like transfer, conference, and hold, just like what you saw in the MyCloud Connect client. You can even keep users in one web-based application with our click to dial. And finally, you can quickly create and join Mitel Connect events from Google Calendars, as well as have web conferencing notifications and quick join. So how does one manage all of this? With the simple, easy-to-use web portal. Here you can build call flows using the visual call flow editor, like hunt groups and auto attendance, where you can assign on hours and holiday schedules, upload prompts. You can make moves, adds, and changes with users, assign them phones. You can even run user and call detail reports. The simplicity really allows anyone to be an admin. Just to recap, Mitel has numerous applications across the board, from the Connect client for call control, to Teamwork for messaging and SMS, to My Team Meetings for video and web conferencing, to the Mobility app for the on-the-go employee, to the Chrome browser extension for quick deployment, and of course, the rest of the Mitel portfolio, which includes Enterprise Contact Center and call recording, just to name a few. So please check out mitel.com for the full list. Thank you.
Thanks, JR, for the demonstration. A major concern among school districts across the U.S. is to rapidly manage and adapt their operations and secure them in case of risks and disasters. You may in fact have a mass notification solution used now for weather alerts and general announcements. However, many solutions in place today may have limitations in terms of interoperability with other applications. Mitel Revolution is Mitel's new mass notification solution, which could become a key component of any K-12 school district's strategy for complying with recently implemented rules and regulations such as Kerry's Law and Ray-Baum's Act. For Kerry's Law, as you can see to the left, this means alerting crisis managers within the district when an emergency call has been placed and to know from where, and then expanding on the minimum regulatory requirements by enabling rapid on-the-fly communication and conferencing amongst those managers. To the right, for Ray-Baum's Act, that can mean delivering to crisis managers the dispatchable location in the district associated with that emergency call and to help pinpoint for emergency response teams and assistance. So there's a number of activation methods and triggers which can provide the notification to a variety of endpoints, as you can see from this picture here on this slide. And as far as integration and interoperability, you can see some of the major brands that Mitel Revolution supports within their ecosystem. So with Mitel Revolution, let's tell you a little bit about how this works. And JR is going to be able to help with showing you how easy it is to set up a trigger or activator, which then provides the notification, and that goes out to the specific endpoint. So JR will get started on that. Before he does, though, I just wanted to make sure you all know that Mitel Revolution features a very low cost of entry, and there is a 50-seat minimum, which satisfies many customers' needs for 911 alerting, but being met as easily as and as low as $850 a year for $17 a license for the 50-seat minimum. And in fact, we have a promotional sled bundle for education that comes with 3 licenses, which are not tied to specific users, but it can actually be used for endpoint, desktop, or a mobile device. And that can be set up for as little for 150 unique endpoints for as little as $1,400 a year. So Mitel Revolution provides more than 911 alerts and is a unique product in terms of its interoperability with other applications and is often sold with our Mitel phone systems. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let JR get started on that Mitel Revolution demo. Thanks, JR. Take it away.
Let's talk Mitel Revolution, which provides a way to centrally manage creating and sending both emergency and non-emergency notifications. In Mitel Revolution, you can create activators or triggers, like when someone dials 911, then sends a notification type, such as emergency alert, to an endpoint, like email address or desktop client. Let's see a couple of examples. First example is addressing Carey's Law and when someone dials an emergency number. In this case, I've configured 67911 to simulate 911, as I do not want to disturb our local dispatch. Now, when I place a call to the emergency 67911 number, the Revolution system prompts my desktop application with the announcement that an emergency number has been dialed, and also the person who dialed it. I can also receive a text message, as shown here. The next example is an active shooter drill. In this example, you want to alert everyone in the school. You can trigger an active shooter alert, which will send a pre-recorded page over a paging system, and even send an alert to a mobile application requesting response if assistance is needed or not. I'll trigger an active shooter alert now and show you how an end user can receive that alert on both their PC and mobile application and give a response with optional geolocation. Here is the dashboard application with the response. And here's the mobile phone application with the response. As you can see, I can also include my geolocation. Now, in the dashboard, you can see default responses from each user as well as these custom messages and even their geolocation. So let's view those responses. Here's the no response, here's the yes response, here's the yes custom response, as well as the yes geolocation. The mobile application can prove to be very useful for the on-the-go user. You can use the application to trigger an emergency or non-emergency notification. Here's an example of notifying maintenance of a water spill. And as you can see, you can also choose to include a recorded audio file or attach a picture. Once sent, the notification will come to the dashboard, and you can also immediately notify the correct party. Here's an example of this notification. Some of the many other options are fun things like quick polls for teachers and users asking what they want for lunch. Here we have a pizza party poll and want to know which type of pizza to order. I'll send the alert now and wait for the responses. Now, let's check out the responses. And it looks like we're having cheese today. Another very useful feature is the scheduled notifications shown here. You can integrate your school bells and paging systems, then set daily or weekly pre-recorded announcements and even trigger the bell to go off. All this can now be centrally managed and automated with Mitel Revolution. As for the MyCloud Connect platform, Mitel Revolution is currently on the roadmap. Thank you for your time today.
Now, let's get right into the case study interview conducted by Joe Hatton from Structured Communications, our Director of Cloud Services, with Curtis Nelson, the CTO from West Lynn Wilsonville School District. Joe, take it away.
So I'm Joe Hatton. I'm joined today by Bob Hunter and JR from Mitel. We have the privilege of speaking with Curtis Nelson, who's the Chief Technology Officer for the West Lynn Wilsonville School District, about his experiences during the pandemic and how their Mitel phone system has helped them overcome communications challenges. Thanks so much for joining us, Kurt. We look forward to this conversation.
You bet. Thank you.
So we could start out with a question. How did COVID impact the West Lynn Wilsonville School District, and what were some of the unexpected challenges you faced?
Well, as you can imagine, it threw us for a real loop. Even though leading into the change in school meeting patterns, we kind of knew that COVID was out there, but I don't know how seriously we were taking it in terms of how profoundly it's disrupted pretty much every aspect of our organization. I think just about everybody here in West Lynn Wilsonville, and probably that would be listening to this, can cite March 13th as a pivot day in our history. March 13th, 2020 was the last day that we were in quote unquote regular school with students coming every day. We were sent home for a week, and then the following week was spring break, and the thinking at the time was that we might come back shortly after spring break, and what proceeded after that has now lasted for 13 plus months of thinking that at any point in time in a month to 2 months we may be back at school in some form. And it's caused a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. How are we going to educate students? Of course, one of the biggest aspects of educating students is being able to communicate with their homes. And we were faced with the reality of teachers and administrators and classified staff, secretaries, and so on, who were used to working at school in their office, and were now faced with being at home, forced to stay at home, and yet also encouraged to work as if you were at school, which in some ways was doable, difficult, but doable. But one of the challenges we faced was that we couldn't figure out how to call people's homes without somehow exposing our own phone number or personal contact info that wasn't what we really wanted. Honestly, we had some staff that were just fine with that, but you can imagine that, especially as an organization, we didn't want to set that as an expectation. So we advise people options like, well, let's use Google Voice, but Google Voice assigns fairly random phone numbers that, especially if somebody at home sees that caller ID, if they do see it at all, they may or may not answer the phone, especially if it looks like it's a phone number from Buffalo, New York or something. So we realized that that was not a really good option. We advise people to use the old *69 function to block your own caller ID. which was okay, except that we were still faced with when and if they call back. How are they supposed to call back? So we dealt with that for a while, implementing some not particularly advanced features, but some features of the Mitel environment, like automatic call forwarding, delivery of voicemails via a number of different methods. But we were still faced with, how can somebody at home call to a student's home without exposing their home phone number or their cell phone number? And that was a significant challenge. Of course, we still wanted to be able to communicate with the homes, probably even more than we had in the past, because this communication was even more important, because it might be the only communication we had with the homes at that point. So there was this communication challenge, and I know that's the focus of what we're dealing with here, but I could go into much more depth, probably for about a week and a half, explaining the various other challenges that we were confronted with. Things like figuring out how to get technology to kids' homes, how to get internet access to kids' homes, how to help teachers interact with students in some kind of a virtual environment. None of those are trivial things. And frankly, the last thing that we wanted to have to deal with is, oh, and by the way, how are you supposed to call homes? Something that we wanted to be really quick and easy was also a challenge. And so it literally disrupted pretty much every way we operated. And you couldn't take anything for granted anymore. Even remote access to voicemail was something that we've long had, and many people had used it routinely. But all of a sudden, that was the only way they could check voicemail. And we had to remind people, this is not a new ability. You've had this ability all along, but here's the way to do it. And people were, of course, challenged with that. Relatively simple things like, what's my voicemail ID again? What's my extension? Which seem like really ridiculous questions, and in some ways are, but are what the reality is, that if the phone is ringing on my desk, I don't really have to know what my extension is, unless I'm trying to tell somebody it. But if I'm at home trying to check voicemail, I probably need to know my extension. And I probably need to know my voicemail PIN, which was another layer of the challenge. So those were things that, frankly, in normal operation, we don't think about. If we want to make a call, we pick up the phone and dial it. If we want to answer the phone, we pick it up. If we want to check voicemail, we pick it up, push the voicemail button. But all of a sudden, those simple things were large tasks that had to be relearned in this environment. So it was a challenge in every way you can imagine.
Right, absolutely. Over the last year, it's been interesting across all of our customers. We've seen that in a lot of places where even the small things that felt so easy a year and a half ago, or that we didn't even think about, now all of a sudden, in some cases, were an insurmountable obstacle. So,
yeah, it's kind of a really extreme point of view of it, but I have heard people liken it to a significant injury where you have to relearn everything. Speaking, walking, eating, you have to relearn all of that. That's kind of what this was. We had to relearn how to do education in a completely different way. And almost everything that you had taken for granted was now brought forward as a whole new challenge.
Right. Absolutely. So today you utilize the Mitel Connect platform for your communications. Can you tell us a little about your experience with that platform and that technology from Mitel?
Yeah, so we're pretty long-term Mitel customers, users. We came from the ShoreTel world and are are now on the Mitel Connect platform. I believe we've used the platform, previous iterations of it for, I think 12, maybe even more than that years. Always had a great partnership with Structured Communication. Joe and his team have been stellar at every point along the way. At least 3 major upgrades during that process. Couple different versions of actual handsets. So this past summer, well, actually, let me back up. About 1.5 years ago, we passed a capital bond that provided the means for us to take another big leap forward with our ShoreTel implementation at the time, to move it into the Mitel implementation and the Mitel Connect platform. So as we encountered some of these realities that we did last spring due to COVID, we definitely had an eye on addressing the things that I talked about in terms of the challenges. What are some things that, as we're upgrading to the Connect platform, that we might be able to figure out new, better ways, or even in some cases possible ways, to do certain tasks. Joe and his team came in and we upgraded our core environment. We implemented a few peripheral pieces. We replaced all of our phone switches. We upgraded all of our handsets, which is over 1,000 handsets. The number of phone switches I'd have to think about for a minute, but it's probably 25 or 30. And Joe's team and my team were able to pull this off with only about 2 hours of downtime during the first week of August in an evening, when we were literally upgrading the HQ server. Virtually every other thing happened in what I would call real time, meaning during the school day, although it was July and August, so there was no school day, which was an added convenience. But it did allow us to swap a phone switch within a matter of only a few minutes. And even if we had any downtime during that, we have hot spares that would step in and take care of any ongoing service during that few minutes of outage. But we didn't experience, I don't recall that we experienced any true outage of our phone system, even during that 2-hour upgrade. The 2-hour upgrade, we still were able to function in most ways. In fact, I think we were on the phones while we were upgrading the phones. So it was a very smooth process that could have been highly problematic given the timing, the size of the project. But Joe structured other technicians who I would name by name, except that I always worry that I'm going to miss somebody. So I'm hesitant to mention specific names. But Joe and his team were really, really good at not only making sure that the upgrade went smoothly, minimized disruption, but we're also savvy enough to capitalize on the serendipitous opportunities that the timing was, meaning in July and August, school wasn't in session. A lot of people don't realize this, but schools are never empty. So even in July and August, we had people in the schools or at home trying to use the phone system. So it wasn't as if we could just say, well, shut down the system for a week and we'll upgrade it and then we'll fire it back up. We couldn't do that. But they did realize that the usage of the school systems themselves were minimized. And we capitalized on that by not having to do the work at 2 or 3 a.m. We did it in some cases at 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And were able to do so in a way that did not cause major disruptions.
So we talk a little about the Connect system, and I'll ask you maybe kind of a different question here. What's your experience been with this platform, really owning that in your environment, maintaining it, working with it? Can you speak a little about that?
Well, yeah, so we are we do tend to approach things from an angle of preferring to do them ourselves. There's a certain degree of ownership, a certain degree of what's the word I'm looking for? Being able to lay my hands on it. That is something that just, I don't know if it's me or if other people might feel this way, but I like being able to touch it, as silly as that sounds. I like the fact that if there is some problem, I can literally not just look at log files and toggle software kinds of switches, but I can go pull the power cord out and know that that thing, whatever I pulled the power out of, is in fact off. It's not soft off in some kind of stalled position or out of service mode. It's off. I don't have to wonder about that. And I know that sounds kind of old school, but there is a comfort to that, especially in the phone system where a high degree of functionality is absolutely required. We can't have a system that we think works most of the time. And we can't have a system that when and if there is a problem, we have to just lob out queries to get help with. It's an ironic twist that with a phone system, if you have trouble, you might need to make a phone call to help solve it. But if the phone system's the problem, you've got yourself a pretty good chicken and egg paradox. Especially if you happen to be in an area, as we happen to be, that has very poor cellular coverage. So our reliance on our phone system is very heavy, even more so than probably most school districts. We just happen to be geographically located in an area that is just on the edge of the urban growth boundary, and literally our two communities major communities are in the urban growth boundary and thus have pretty good cellular coverage. But a large portion of our geographical school district isn't in the urban growth boundary, and cellular companies don't tend to cover those areas very thoroughly. So we experience a goodly number of cellular issues. So having a very reliable phone system is a really big part of our environment.
Awesome. So how would you say the Mitel Connect platform helped you maintain communication? I know we briefly spoke on this a little earlier, but was there anything new or unique about the technology that you were able to leverage over this last year?
Yes, there were two major things that come to mind that both helped to address the issues that I spoke about earlier in terms of staff being at home and needing to communicate to students' homes. One was that the Connect system, one of the side components that we implemented was an edge gateway. And that edge gateway allowed us to employ soft phones at home so that our staff could communicate on the phone in a fashion through their computer interface so that they could make and receive phone calls as if they were sitting at their desk at school. Anything that was exposed to the students' homes was, it looked at like the staff member was at school, literally on their regular handset. That was a big function. I believe it's actually the same functionality, but kind of connected to it is that we acquired a number of specific model of phone, I believe it was an IP480, that allowed us to literally take home these phones and insert a power injector and then plug it in, and the phone literally worked like you were at school, and it was the school phone. So when I explain this to people, I find that I usually have to explain it 3 or 4 times before they really wrap their head around it, because they think things like, oh, so you connected it to your home phone. No, I didn't connect it to my home phone. I took home the phone that was on my desk and I plugged it in at home, and it worked like I was at my desk at work. Oh, I see. So your cellular phone? No, it wasn't my cell. It was literally my phone from my desk. Wait a minute. How's that work? Frankly, for the first few times they asked me that question, how's that work? I had to go, well, let me talk to Joe and his crew, because I'm not 100% sure how it does work. I think it establishes a VPN tunnel. I'm not even sure, but I know that it works because I've done it, and it's so easy and so cool. So that was a really nice function to have in our back pocket, especially for our office staff that may or may not be receiving a lot of these calls. It allowed them to use the phone system without having to bother their computer, meaning that they wanted to use their computer while they were on the phone. They didn't want to do too many things. And so the ability to have these IP480 phones connected at home was a really added convenience as well. And then the last thing we implemented is something that we have named this CISO, which is actually CICO, which is call in, call out. And what this functionality does is, using a component of the Mitel system, ECC, which I think stands for Enterprise Control Center or Contact Center. I think it's Contact Center. But using that and using some very creative scripting on the part of Joe's staff, I believe it was mostly Mike Augenbaugh, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But using this system, we set up a number that our staff could, from on their cell phone or on their home phone, they could call a phone number, and when it answers, it calls into our district. When it answers, it says, enter your voicemail extension. They put in their voicemail extension. It says enter their voicemail PIN, and they put in their PIN, and then it says enter the 10-digit phone number that you want to call. So they punch in the 10-digit phone number, and then it makes an outbound call to that phone number. So the person on their cell phone at home or their home phone is making a call from their home into our district, into the Mitel system, that is getting routed back out to the student's home. And the beauty of this was that it looked like it was coming from the school. So this was not even the soft phone. The ability to get users remotely to use the soft phone was in some cases challenging, mostly because of the users. And getting an IP480 in their hands, we just simply couldn't get enough of those phones. So this allowed somebody at home to call into our system and place a call as if they were in our school district. And it exposed the school district phone number. And again, the path was communicating directly to the home through a personal or home phone. And by the way, this functionality also worked no matter where that person was in the world. So they could have been in Maine, and via their cell phone, they call this number at our school district. They put in their voicemail extension, their PIN, and the 10-digit phone number, and it calls right back out. And they can be anywhere. They didn't need anything except the phone that was in their pocket to do it. That provided a very, very useful functionality for a lot of our staff. We put in some protections on that, again, via the masterful scripting of Joe and his staff. Things like if your voicemail PIN happens to be 4 consecutive digits, like 1111, it would stop and say, sorry, you don't have a secure enough PIN, so you're not going to be able to use this system. So we did have a little bit of anxiety about well, what if somebody abuses this? And frankly, that just hasn't happened. And it enabled us to communicate in ways that were very worth that remote risk. So that was a very, very, very useful function.
Excellent. As we start to consider moving back to something resembling normal and start to move back, as I know a lot of districts have, back to in-person learning, which of the platform's features do you think are going to continue continue to play an important role in your communication strategy as you move forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Joel. And so I'm going to answer it a little indirectly to start with. I think it was back in August or September, and I don't mean to be quoting this person. Well, first of all, I don't mean to be quoting because I'm not sure I'm going to get it word for word, but I don't mean to be quoting this person in any kind of political way, endorsement or otherwise. But Alan Greenspan, the former chair of the Federal Reserve, back in August or September, I saw some interview where he was commenting that the way that business functions has been fundamentally changed by this COVID environment. It has literally changed the way that things work, and they will never be the same. They will never be what they were before. As he went through the interview, he elaborated with pretty obvious but not so obvious examples, like people have demonstrated that they can work from home and be productive, and it's okay. A lot of employers were really anxious about kind of crossing that line for a long time, and still there's reasonable anxiety about that. But his point was, this has forced us to recognize that there are things we can do that before we probably weren't really interested in trying. And I would answer your question, Joe, in kind of that same vein, in that schools have found new ways to operate that we would have never even tried before. And for all the reality of kids need to be physically in school to full school experience, which there's truth to that. But for all that reality, there's also a percentage of students who have experienced more success in this environment than they ever have. And our challenge as a school district, and more generally as a public school system, is how do we continue to meet both of those needs? How do we continue to go back, in a sense, to the environment that was working well for a lot of students, probably even a majority of them, but incorporate all the things that we have learned in terms of perhaps more freedom in the day and time of day that you experience your education and how you experience your education. So ultimately, the answer to your question is how, in terms of how does what we've learned help us moving forward, it's in that, like Alan Greenspan said, this is going to fundamentally change the way we operate. Many aspects of what we've done for the last 13 months will just continue to be the case. We will have probably more students who in some fashion continue to get educated at home, but by us, not homeschooling, but schooling at home. And even if that is just twice a week, you do it from home. Or when you're sick, you do it from home. Or if your family's going on a vacation, you can do it from wherever you happen to be. All of those things are things that we've learned, we actually probably can do that better than we thought we could. And all of the things that the Mitel system has provided for us are fundamental parts of that. If a staff person is sick, we have certain classes that take highly specialized skill sets to teach. I myself happen to be a former calculus teacher. If I was ever sick or stuck at home for maybe my kids were sick, I knew that my sub wasn't going to be able to teach the class that day. My sub was going to be there, but they weren't going to be able to do anything effectively. But now I could be at home and teach my class. And I could be at home and contact the 5 kids that weren't at class, even though I wasn't either. And I could do that without exposing my home phone number. Those are things that 14 months ago never entered our radar of even possibility. But now that we've been kind of forced through it, we've learned a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like thankful for this whole COVID thing, but it has forced us into territory that we were at least reluctant to move into. And as we've forced our way through it, we've learned that it actually can work. And in some ways, it can work better.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time and telling us about your experiences. And thanks to the Mitel team for jumping on here as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Curtis.
Yes, thank you.
Today, so we'd like to move to Q&A, but before we do, we'd like to showcase one contract vehicle, Sourcewell. So Sourcewell is a contract vehicle that's already been through the competitive bid process and awarded to Mitel. So we're our Sourcewell contractor. And by way of structured communications, being an authorized Mitel partner, they are a Sourcewell selling agent. So it's a cooperative purchasing program, and the membership is free, and most all of the K through 12 school districts are already members. And if they're not, we can help add you for free. It takes 15 minutes to become a member. The significance of Sourcewell is they are a government agency or a political subdivision of the state of Minnesota. So when you do business with Sourcewell, it's really government doing business with government. Now, I promised everyone that I wouldn't read any of the slides during the ACPE show. However, I am going to read just this one middle bullet. Members have a choice of these contracts and procurement processes, thereby satisfying local, state solicitation requirements and avoiding duplication of the process. So here's a way of potentially bypassing a formal bid process. So that's the power of Sourcewell, and we are excited to extend that to each and every K through 12 school district through structured communications. So with that, let's start the Q&A.